Good morning. I am here with Stan Laing, the Executive Director of Northside Athletics. And well, first of all, I want to say what a pleasure it is to be able to sit down and visit with you, because it seems like I've been on a 5-month vacation. And I know that it has not been a vacation for you, obviously. There are going to be some changes this year. And I don't know of any better way to handle this than let's just launch into some of the changes.
Right.
I know football, Northside is kind of in a unique position. And what I mean by that is currently there is a directive by Bexar County that has said no activities can happen until September 8th.
Right.
My understanding from UIL is they have set the first day of official practice as September 7th. But schools can do strength and conditioning before September 7th, correct?
Not in Bexar County.
Not in Bexar County, but across the state, if there is not a local order that prevents that, then they can go ahead and do strength and conditioning. The reason I'm pointing that out is because it does affect Northside's schedule. Because if you cannot start strength and conditioning before August 24th, the first week for games, which was scheduled September 24th, would actually be a scrimmage week for Northside.
Correct.
So what does that mean for us?
Well, it means that we will not play our first game until the week of October 1st. Provided, and I think you brought up a good point early on, is, as of today, next week, we may be, with different guidance. They may be looser, or they may be more stringent. But at this point, all we can do is plan for what we know, given today. And that would be, we could start when we're talking about football, we can start, if we start practicing September 8th, our first scrimmage will be that weekend of September 24th through 26th, and then the following week, we can start the regular season.
Stan, with that part in mind, has it kind of limited who you can scrimmage? Because obviously other schools could already have started play on September 24th.
Yeah, it created a little bit of a challenge. And I think we're in a really unique situation, and really a positive situation with Northeast ISD. Obviously we have two of our schools, Clark and Brandeis, that are in that district. And over the years, we've worked well with Northeast ISD, and so no exception this year. We were able to get together, look at our schedules, and see how we can accommodate one another with scrimmages, and quite frankly, throughout the season, we've got some non-district games set up where we're going to cross over and play Northeast schools, and then of course we have a unique football schedule this year.
Well, and I was fixing to segue into that, because right now, if you start October 1st, games are scheduled to go until December, which is going to be different for everybody, because typically if you were playing in December, that meant Santa brought you an early Christmas gift and you were far deep into the playoffs. But district's actually going to be running into December. I know as of now, as of this moment, we're talking about having a regular 10-game season. And that also means that each school in the district would be allowed one non-district game, and then the rest of them would be district games. So that brings up an interesting, from what I'm understanding from you, right now that non-district game looks like it will be a Northeast team on the schedule.
Not necessarily.
Okay.
And actually right now it's a 9-game schedule as of today. What our coaches would like to do, if at all possible, is play a complete district schedule, right? But one thing we have learned is, the only thing certain is uncertainty right now, so we have to plan accordingly. And so first option is play a complete district schedule, if we don't have any interruptions whatsoever, provided we start September 8th practices and that type of thing. Within that full district schedule, we have built in a zone schedule, because in essence, we can play a zone schedule in 6 weeks. And so the plan is to play a full schedule, but if we don't, we've got a zone schedule built in to where we'll play 5 weeks of games starting week 1. You know, we're going to play, if we got an open date, we're going to cross over and play a Northeast school. Some schools will start week 1 where they're going to play one another, which is going to count towards their zone schedule. Week 6, we're going to have those crossover games, which we're well aware within our Northside community what zone play looks like. We've done this, you know, a lot in years past. We'll cross over and play one another. You know, the 2 number 1 seeds will play one another. The number 2, number 3 seeds will play one another. Those will determine our 4 playoff representatives. Now, week 7 through 10, if you look at our district schedule, it's to be determined, because right now we don't know who's going to cross over and play each other week 6. And if we're at that point and we have had no disruptions, now we're going to schedule the rest of the schedule based on who they still have left to play, you know, for district schedule. So it's really a unique way to look at it, but in our minds, it's probably the best way because of the uncertainty, because we don't know if we're going to get delayed. And in that 6-week schedule, we can actually start as late as October 31st and get a full zone play in to determine our playoff representatives.
But to cement a couple of things, right now you're intending a full district schedule.
Correct.
And the playoff seeding would be based on that full district schedule.
Correct.
However, if the state comes in and says, hey, we need to put the brakes on for a week or 2, or from my understanding, there's supposed to be now a local health committee that each district is supposed to be, and then they're reporting to Bear County, and they may make some decisions. But if the brakes get kind of applied, you have played the first 6 weeks that would be a zone schedule.
Right.
And it would be, just like you said, we've done this rodeo before, so we know how this works. And those crossover games would determine the 1 through 4 seeding for the playoffs.
Correct. And the other thing, it gives us some wiggle room and say the first 6 weeks, say we get delayed for a couple of weeks, we just push the zone schedule back. We still have those 4 weeks, another month to figure out, or we're rocking along here, and I'll use 2 schools for an example, O'Connor and Stevens. Say there's something that happens between those 2 schools the week that they're supposed to play, that of a COVID outbreak or whatever, they can't play one another that week. And so we would move the schedule, you know, we'd bump that crossover week out a week so we have time for them to play, you know, and then we'll just have crossover games.
So it sounds like you made lemonade out of lemons the best way you could with football. I know that it's been on the minds, especially of senior parents, it's been on the minds of the community, but as of now, there is going to be a football season.
Well, as of today, we're planning accordingly, you know, with you know, fans in the stands, you know, what that looks like.
Let's talk about that for a moment too, because there's going to be some changes. First, everybody needs to understand that if you're coming into the gym area as a visitor, there's a QR code on the door that you have to scan, and if you don't have the capability of scanning it, then there's some paperwork that you have to certify. Stan, will that also be the procedure for fans coming to volleyball games?
Correct, volleyball and to our football stadium.
And so with the football, and we'll stay there right now because that's what we were talking about. My understanding is that the stands will also be at 50% capacity.
Correct, 50%.
So, not casting any shade about any games in the past, but 50% capacity could handle most crowds for most games.
Yeah, for the most part. But when we say 50, you know, we have right at 10,000 seat stadiums, and so it's not as clear as saying we're going to have 5,000 because we have to accommodate for some type of social distancing, and so it'll be, you know, it'll be less than that. You know, it may be a capacity of maybe 4,000. You know, we're in the process of looking at that. The other thing is, you know, we have another important program, our fine arts programs, and so we are working with our fine arts department, and because we're going to make sure, however many they feel comfortable, they want band kids and spirit organizations here, we're going to accommodate that, and then whatever's left over, you know, will be for our fans to be able to come and enjoy the game.
So I know you have a reserve section, but this year to accommodate...
No, we won't have one.
What I was going to ask is the whole stadium almost like a reserve section because of social distancing. people are going to kind of be expected to sit in certain.
It'll be a general
Okay.
admission, and to try to explain it in simple terms, it'll be every other row. Obviously everyone needs to take some social responsibility on this. If you're a family, obviously you can sit together, but if you're with complete strangers, you probably need a social distance.
Well, and let's talk about social responsibility, because I think that's important here too. I think it's important to stress, if you're not feeling well, if you've had a cough, or you're feeling tired, or you're just not yourself, this year especially, it's probably best that you stay home.
Well, yes, and one thing that we're being real proactive about is the idea of live streaming our games as much as possible. And that way to bring, obviously the things that we're excited about within our community when it comes to athletic events, and in football's case, the fine arts side of it, is we plan to live stream those games. So those fans, or even if you don't feel good or you don't feel comfortable coming, in which, there's a lot of people that are going to feel that way, they're still going to be able to watch the game.
Well, and it's also important to note that because of the limited capacity, and if the games start heating up between schools, you're still going to be able to watch your athlete play. You're still going to be a part of the game, because you are going to have the live streaming options.
Yeah.
And so, Stan, are they going to go through the full playoff schedule? Will we have by district and area?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
But what will be different this year, obviously, is playoffs will probably be pushed into January?
For football, I think the state championship week is like January 15th that week. So yeah, that for 5A and 6A. So it'll be pushed. Thanksgiving weekend, for example, that's district play. Hard to believe. Obviously in years past, as a football coach, football player, it was always great to say if you were eating pumpkin pie after practice, that means that you were in the playoffs. This year everybody's going to have an opportunity to eat pumpkin pie during that week, because district play will be going.
But for some of the seniors, though, it's going to give them the taste of what it would be like to play after a New Year's Eve bowl game or New Year's bowl game, because they'll be playing January 15th.
Yeah.
So that's what football is going to look like. But let's turn to volleyball. I noticed today, walking into the gym, it's August 7th, and it's extremely quiet.
Yeah.
And normally on August 7th, it would not be quiet, because we would be going into volleyball games and tournaments.
Yes.
My understanding is that volleyball district play will start almost immediately when school starts?
It will. Not when school starts itself, but after September 8th.
Right, I'm sorry, September 8th is the...
Mid-September is when we would start play. As it stands now, we won't be able to get a non-district schedule in, not unless some things change a little bit for us, and we get right into district play.
And will people see volleyball tournaments like they have seen in the past?
That's we're hoping. None of our schools are traveling to where they can spend, where they're having to spend the night, and so everything will be local.
Kind of like Northeast, I know, has hosted a tournament. Northside has hosted a tournament.
Correct.
And kind of like Comal and that area.
Yeah.
So let's talk about seating inside the volleyball games.
Obviously backing up on that, if we're going right into district play, we won't have those tournaments.
Right. And volleyball season will conclude this time around late October?
I believe so. I'd have to look at that calendar. Everything has shifted on us so much. Basketball start date, for example, it's very close to that same start date, but seeing that's going to be a challenge for us is the overlapping of volleyball and basketball now, because that will be a facility challenge that we'll have to work through. Basketball now, they've eliminated all the tournaments, so we can cut back on their schedule a little bit.
And so seating inside the gym, same situation. They will have to go through the QR code. There will be social distancing inside the gyms.
Correct.
And we're not even going to delve into the spring yet, because I don't know that anybody has thought that far.
Well, if you have any answers, let me know.
But as a coach, a former coach, as a person in charge of athletics, how stressful has this been?
You know, it's just like anything else, James. I mean, you know, if you look at things from a challenging perspective and can stress yourself out, I think a lot of times, and I think it's just a coach's DNA. You look at challenges as opportunities, and you know, this is just another opportunity for us to figure out how to make things work. You know, and so, yeah, is there a concern? You know, first and foremost, the concern is the safety of our athletes and our coaches, you know, and what this is going to look like in regards to when we do start playing and competing. You know, that is a concern. But, you know, where are the opportunities to make sure we're doing everything we can to make it as safe as an environment as we can, you know, and you know, the issue right now for all of us is there's so many unanswered questions. We just don't know. And you know, but it's going to come to a point where there is going to be a certain amount of risk involved that, you know, there'll have to be choices and decisions being made based on that. And some may decide not to, and that's understandable.
Well, let's talk about that, because that's the white elephant in the room.
Yeah.
I think it's on every player's mind, it's on the parents' mind,
Yeah.
it's on the community's mind. What has Northside done to answer those safety concerns?
Well, I think, you know, first of all, as a district, and we've been saying this all along, you know, before we can even think about competitions in this gym or on this field, we have to get kids back in school safely. And so that's been our number one priority. And so the district, we've come up with a playbook, you know, as far as what that looks like with students coming back onto campus. We're in the process of working on that playbook for what that process is going to look like coming into our gyms and into our stadiums. And so a lot of that same language will be very similar to what that looks like. And so, again, that may change. The restrictions may ease somewhat, or they may be stricter. You know, we just have to wait and see, you know, what that looks like. But to answer your question, you know, we started out with a playbook, you know, to what this looks like getting back into school. And before we actually start competing and our student athletes start practicing, you know, we'll have that playbook in place for them as well.
But let's do stress that when an athlete is on the bench in volleyball, they're going to be masked up.
Correct.
I mean, that's just part of today's normal.
Sure.
When people are sitting in the stands, they're expected to have their mask on.
Correct.
Do you see that posing an issue or a challenge for coaches, teams, administrators?
Well, again, when you say a challenge, I mean, it's one of those things, it is what it is, and going back to the social responsibility, you know, I think we all have, regardless what people think, you know, and everybody has their opinion on that, I think we do have the social responsibility, given the data we know to this point, is what does help, you know, in regards, you know, the social distancing, the face masks, the sanitizations. The question here is going to be very difficult to social distance in the heat of competition, you know, and so there draws a line of that certain risk factor that has to, you know, the decision has to be made.
But to mitigate that risk factor, I think it's important that we stress that coaches are well aware of their athletes' safety.
Yeah.
There is not a coach out there that would put their athlete in a different or a difficult position.
Right.
With these athletes working together, practicing together, spending time together, coaches and athletes are all going to kind of know when a red flag is present, wouldn't you say?
Well, yeah, but here's the deal. I mean, we're walking amongst red flags. That's what we don't know. What we don't know, also, you know, and so. And I think, you know, you have to go under the assumption that just like us here today, sitting here today, we're being mindful of our social distancing, and when we get up, we have our masks, and so we have to be as mindful as possible, you know, with our athletes and practices and our coaches, as far as even coaches and in the coaches' offices, as far as being mindful with your face mask. If you're not in an environment where you can maintain that social distancing. And so, like I said, there's just so many mitigating situations that we just don't know, and we have to do our best to navigate through them and as safely as possible.
And Stan, I really want to, I know it sounds like I'm harping on this subject, and that's not kind of where I'm taking this, but it's important that if that athlete wakes up that morning and is not feeling well, even if it is the championship game, even if it is the district championship game, they need to stay home. Yeah,
and here's the thing, I was really proud of our coaches and our athletes. We were really the first group to come back this summer through strength and conditioning, and our coaches did a phenomenal job educating our athletes on obviously the pre-screening procedure. That was probably the most important piece of the whole, the safety precautions was the self-screening that you're talking about. And what was very, when I say refreshing, it was just good to know that our coaches did a good job communicating, educating our athlete, and the athletes responded. There was often, we had situations throughout the district where an athlete called their coach and said, "Hey coach, listen, somebody in my family is not feeling good, and I need to stay home today," or a family member did test positive. I need to quarantine with them. And that was because of that education piece that the coaches did up front to educate their student athletes.
And I know there's been big talk this summer from national level all the way down about why it's important to get students back into the routine, and it's important to get them back into the building. But it sounds to me that Northside's number one priority is the safety of all students, not just athletes, but all students.
Correct.
The safety of the staff, making sure that the coaches, the teachers, the custodians, all the support staff that's involved, that's the priority.
Yeah.
Below that is the games that we love to watch, the games that we love to see and be a part of. So is it safe to say that Northside has been very cognizant of creating the ability and procedures necessary for us to enjoy life as normal as possible? Notice I said as possible.
Yes,
because
yes, yeah. I don't know what we can call normal nowadays, right? So, yes. First and foremost is the safety of our students, our athletes, our teachers, our coaches, and as a district, it's been made very clear. We're going to take data, scientific data, from our health department to make those decisions on, and again, a new criteria has come out that obviously, there's the green, yellow, and red zones, right? And so have given us, benchmarks to shoot for, to see where we feel comfortable, coming back. And obviously we got to trust the health experts on that to educate us on and help us to make informed decisions. But irregardless of any of those zones, if you will, there is still going to continue to be a certain amount of risk involved there. But again, we got to do everything that we can within our control to make it a safe environment as possible.
And we talk about health experts. I'm going to give a shout out to a moment for a lot of the unsung heroes of all athletic competitions, and that's the athletic trainer.
Yes, absolutely.
And I think that this year they're going to play somewhat of a pivotal role, because they're the ones that really are trained to observe, to see, and kind of be like the front line, almost like your offensive and defensive line together.
Yeah.
Right there.
Yeah, there's no question our trainers do a great job. They played an important role of us putting together our guidelines for strength and conditioning, and just a phenomenal job. We had a great plan in place while we were able to have strength and conditioning, to follow those guidelines, and thanks to our trainers, they played a big role in that.
So, Stan, do you have one final message that you would like to give the people of Northside, the fans of Northside, the athletes?
James, one thing that we talk a lot about, that we stand for, you could say it's a culture, but I'd like to say it's just the way we look at things. And, our coaches and what they instill in our student athletes is we talk about going beyond the game. you know, and beyond the X's and O's. You know, we're going to be called more than ever this year to actually go beyond the game and the conversation that you and I are having. One thing that we also talk about is the idea of hope, and I think during this time is when hope can shine the brightest, because the way we look at hope and when we instill it in our athletes and our coaches instill it in our athletes is, you know, we're not talking about just being optimistic. We're not talking about wishful thinking. We talk about hope as being a belief and an expectation through difficult times, through adversity, you know, whatever challenge that we're facing. Trust me, we're facing some tremendous challenges. We will persevere. We will get through this. You know, that hope is there. And so, you know, again, whatever that may look like, you know, the challenges we may face, you know, if we take that social responsibility and we work together within our communities, we're going to get through this.
And one very last important piece. Stan, is there some place that the parents, the athletes, and the coaches, fans, is there one place that they can go to find information about upcoming changes, upcoming events?
In regards to athletics, in the very near future, we will have information on our athletic website. You know, we have the strength and conditioning guidelines there. We're in the process of, by the end of August, you know, we will have those guidelines up. What fans can expect coming to the games. You know, what does ticketing look like? You know, as far as online ticketing, you know, and those type stadium capacities and all that. So that to be determined right now. But we'll have that information up before we actually kick it off.
And if they have any questions about a game that night or anything that might happen, that's probably the best place to go to find.
Yes, it'll be. Yes.
Wonderful. Well, thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you.
Well, good deal.